Hello out there, Caniac Nation. Thanks for joining us for session 44 of Caniac Sessions. I'm Griff.
And I am AB.
And we've got two guests with us for session 44 because we feel like we just need some help trying to basically come to terms with where we're at now, approaching the off season. So we've got Brandon from the Warning Take, who I'm sure you guys know if you've listened to us for any amount of time. He's probably been a guest on here more than anybody. And we've got Sam Wallace with us from the Caniac Report. So half of those guys over there. Also, if you've probably listened to us for any time, you know who that is too. So how you guys doing? You guys hanging in there?
Sam, you go ahead.
Yeah, hanging in there.
Good.
As much as I can.
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to go? I'm so depressed.
No, I was asking Brandon, how you doing?
Oh,
buddy?
yeah. I'm good. As much as I didn't like the result of that game, I'm glad I got to come see you guys and hang out down there for a couple of days and enjoy the weather. Because the moment I got back up here, the weather was awful. So,
I hear you. AB, how you doing, buddy?
Only good thing about Game 7 was sitting with Brandon, and then it just
What Game
went
7?
down. Not Game 7, Game 6. It should have been Game 7, but just depression. And then I had to go drive 2 hours to the beach. So had a lot to think about afterwards.
Yeah.
I feel left out with you guys all being at the game.
Oh, you weren't there, were you?
No, I was in Charlotte, and I said it in our last episode, but the events leading up to the game, let's say on my way to Charlotte, my car broke down on the freeway. So
that was a telltale sign.
So you already knew.
Yeah.
Was it in like the last 20 miles?
No, I still had like an hour left.
Oh, I didn't know if this was like a third period breakdown or if it was like more like in the first.
Well, this was kind of the day before, but it was just the start of just bad stuff happening.
The third period breakdown was in PNC.
That's accurate.
Yeah, see, so there's that connection.
All right, guys. So we got some stuff to talk about. We'll talk about that Game 6. We'll talk about the exit interviews that just happened with the team and the coach. We'll talk about a bit of business that was announced here over the last 48 hours with our head coach. And we'll talk about some comments that came out of the coach and general manager, basically end of season media availability that they had. We'll discuss some of that and some topics surrounding all that. Then we'll give our remaining conference final predictions. Somebody's dog is going nuts in the background. Whose is that?
That's my rat.
Is that the
dog.
Chihuahua?
Yeah,
Chihuahua. It has to be.
If you're watching the YouTube version, he muted so he could yell at his Chihuahua.
I didn't want that to get heard to the masses, so that's why I made sure to turn the microphone off. You can probably imagine what I said.
I can use my imagination. Anyway, we'll give our predictions for both conference final series and the Stanley Cup final, and then we'll get up out of here. But before we get going, first things first, we are here at Caniac Sessions, promotional partners with SeatGeek. If you do not have a SeatGeek account and you want to purchase some tickets, get onto SeatGeek.com, create an account, and first-time ticket purchasers can use promo code Caniac Sessions. That's one word, no space between Caniac and Sessions, and you can get $20 off your first ticket purchase. Take advantage of that. It helps us, it helps SeatGeek, and most importantly, it helps you. All right. Here we go. Game 6. This series, basically, to sum it up, started off as a disaster, right? Absolute disaster. Saw Carolina go down 0-3. And, you kind of felt like, if you go back to session 42 and hear what we talked about, we felt like any of those games could go either way, right? I think everybody pretty much agreed with that. We thought that, they were all 3 one-goal games, 2 of those going into overtime periods. Game 3 went to double overtime. And, so even though you were down 0-3, you felt like you could have been up 0-3 or 3-0, right? Just like the Florida series last year. That wasn't the case. but Carolina would give us all some hope. They would battle back to get 2 wins, one in Madison Square Garden, and then one back at home in Game 4, and bring it to Game 6, which looked promising through 2 periods, guys. It really did. I thought we were the start of that third period, and even probably 5 minutes into that, I thought we were cruising to a win, and then the wheels fell off. I'll open it up. Anybody that wants to talk about it, how you felt, how angry you were. I mean, 3 of us were in the building. Sam, you said you were in Charlotte, but your co-host Sam Driscoll was in the building. Matter of fact, in sight of me, so I could see the hurt in his face, and he could see the hurt in my face. But I'll just open it up. How do you guys thoughts of the game, thoughts of the collapse, just general commentary.
So when I went up to use the bathroom and go to the concessions during the second intermission, I felt night and day different from the time I got to the top of the stairs from when I was at the seat. I felt great at the end of the second period. I'm like, okay, they got this. And then I got this sinking feeling, and I told myself just to, I just kind of buried it and everything. Spoke to a Rangers fan up there, really nice guy and everything like that. And I just had the sinking feeling. And then about that time, I texted my friend Jeremy that you guys met and texted in the group, or somebody texted in the group chat that the job's not done. And that's how I felt about it. But even from when we got back to the seat, AB and I were just kind of looking at each other like, okay, job's not done, which was, I think internally, him and I both, and AB, correct me if I'm wrong on this, we were both kind of hitting the panic button because I felt like something bad was going to happen. I really did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, that's what happened. I kept telling myself, no, self-fulfilling prophecies tonight, Brandon. Nothing bad's going to happen. And then, unfortunately, it did. The thing that disappoints me the most is that 13 minutes that the Hurricanes lost in. That was a perfect time for them to play the most effective form of Carolina Hurricanes hockey that we've become accustomed to and extend the series to 7 games. I don't put that game 100% on Freddie. I wish he'd made a couple more timely saves. I don't put it entirely on any individual player. There were some that were better than others, and I don't put 100% of it on the coaching staff. And I do think that going forward, they're going to evolve and make changes to prevent a game like that from happening again. I think that was, we talk about scoring by committee. I feel like that the team kind of lost by committee there in the last 13 minutes. They had a good chance to close it out, and they all collectively failed to do so. There was no single point of failure. Whole team kind of came down all at once.
Sam?
I was crushed in my hotel room when I saw that third period unfold. I really was, but I also was reminded at the same time being like, we could have been swept, but we didn't.
That's
Sound
true.
like Rod.
He's right though.
So I was just like, I was a little bit more accepting of this loss than let's say like last year's playoffs. Last year's playoffs, I was more mad because I hate being swept. I think that is like the worst feeling.
Yeah.
But I mean, knowing the Hurricanes gave a fight in the series made me happy, but how they ended that game was very terrible. I seriously thought they were going to win. And when they started that third period, they had so many chances to get that one goal. I really do think if it made it 4-1, we would have won. But we didn't.
Agree. AB, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just give a little recap. First period, Kane scored. Great play by Martin up behind the net. And they just top right to beat Igor in front of the net. Second period,
beautiful.
Jarvis
I just want to add before you, just a beautiful little flip up into the top of the net. Oh man, it was a beautiful little chip. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Second period, Jarvis got a power play goal, which we struggled on the power play the entirety of the playoffs. Trocheck responded with a tip out in front, cut the lead to 1. Aho would light it and expand the lead back to 3-1. And the third period, it just felt like game 5 where the Rangers just gave up. Kreider would backhand a goal to cut it to 1 and then would tie it on the power play through to 3. 5 minutes left. Kreider got his third goal of the game, hat trick. And then Goodrow iced the series on an empty net to make it 5-3. Canes would lose 42 in the series. The team looked really good in the first two periods. Everybody looked good. Freddie looked good. All of the lines were clicking. We had more high danger chances. It was just one of those things where I think we felt comfortable and the Rangers attacked. They weren't happy with the game 5 result, and we had a chance to make it go 7. If we won game 6, it would have been game over, in my opinion, but that wasn't the case. Lost the series. It sucks, but just the power play has to work in any playoff series, and it wasn't. I felt like that was the death of the Canes. We played really well 5-on-5. It just sucks.
I don't know. I thought that our special teams got better as the series went on, right? Including the power play. I mean, I think game 5 there wasn't. I don't think either team scored any power play goals, but game 4, or was there a shorthanded goal in game 5 that I think we might have overcome? I think that was the case. I think there was a shorthanded goal that, yeah, it was Truba's shorthanded goal, and we ended up, that was their only goal. Mm-hmm. But I thought the penalty kill got better as the series went on. It was awful in game 1, got a little better in game 2, but I don't know. I think that that third period of game 6, I'm not sure that. I don't really think we were just trying to protect the lead. Because I thought we were putting a lot of pressure on the Rangers in the first 5 minutes of that period. We hit some posts. I think we had I think there was even a breakaway. I think the Aho breakaway was in the third period, or maybe it was the Gensel breakaway. Mm-hmm. Where somebody hit the post, or
it was Gensel. He was out of gas.
Yeah, Gensel hit the post, and there was another one Aho had that he just ripped it over top of the net. So I don't really feel like we were just like trying to protect that lead. Like, I think we were still pushing. And I'll get your guys' thoughts on this, but I just thought the Rangers, and more specifically Chris Kreider, just elevated. I mean, I feel like a lot of that was just an effort by him. And as soon as he, forced in that puck off the goalpost that was, resting up against Freddie's skate, and he just forced it under his skate into the net, it was like they smelled blood. And, that was a soft goal. You can't allow that. If Freddie finds the puck and puts his glove down, we might not even be having this conversation. We might be previewing the Eastern Conference Final right now. I don't know. Or at least talking about a game 7. Mm-hmm. But like you said, Brandon, I thought it was a loss by committee. The defense was kind of, I thought that puck management was god-awful the last 15, trying to clear the defensive zone, just whiffing on pucks. Like, instead of trying to chip the puck out of the zone, just passing it straight to the blue. You know what I mean?
It was either that or they were icing it. They couldn't make a good zone exit to save their lives
at all. And it's just like they got anxious or something. I don't know. It was just the perfect storm that just was the downfall in that period, and New York raised up and got it. I think as a whole, if you take all 6 games total, I think if you take every facet of the game, I feel like we outplayed the Rangers. There's 2 areas where we did not. One is the goaltending battle, and the other is overall special teams. If you just get to a net of 0 on special teams, or even, you could lose special teams, but as long as it's not like this huge gaping, difference, I think we win that series. If you take back the shorthanded goal in what game was it, 2 or 3?
I think it was game 3. Or is the Benajad?
Yeah.
If you get that shorthanded goal back, you win that game. I mean, likely. That it never makes it to overtime. If I don't know, just missed opportunities. I'm done talking about it. I don't know. I think that the fact, like Sam said, the fact that they were able to claw their way back and make it a respectable showing in the series says a lot about the team. And I think it was, I know this sounds stupid. Everybody makes fun of Rod for saying that, well, we didn't really. But, I mean, really, if you watched every minute of the series like we did, it was a lot closer than 4-2. I mean, it could have easily been 4-2 the other way. So, any last thoughts on that before we move on?
I thought the turning point was that first Kreider goal that Anderson should have had on his skates.
He had the same with Lafreniere.
Yeah, it was a lot like the Lafreniere goal.
Yeah,
that was to me the turning point, because when they got that goal, I was like, "This is going to be a different game."
Did you have something else to say, Brandon?
Yeah. So what I think that the Rangers knew if that game went back to the Garden that they were in trouble. Because the only thing worse than having a 3-0 lead and not closing it out is having a 3-0 lead and the series getting tied. So they were playing desperate. They were playing like the series was on the line for them, and they dumped it all into that 13 minutes. And AB, one thing that I remember mentioning at the seats, you remember how I told you how Jarvis's shooting mechanics looked off?
Yeah, I didn't think so, but then afterwards I was like,
Yeah, when the rotator cuff and whatever else he had wrong with him, I just knew he wasn't rolling his wrists or positioning his hands on the stick like he normally does when he shoots. Because one of the things that's always fascinated me about Seth Jarvis is his shot. And I knew that was off. So that may explain why the Jag line wasn't together, because Jarvis was having a hard time shooting. So he wanted someone completely healthy with Aho, which was Svechnikov.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to just to follow up on your Jag line reference there. I listened to, Ovius and Giglio, who used to be part of 99.9 The Fan, they now have their own little podcast. They interviewed Rod Brindamore and Don Waddell yesterday after the media availability, the official media availability. And Joe Giglio flat out asked him, Rod, why did you break up the Jag line? He's like, I got to know. He's like, I'm with you 99%. He's like, but there's one thing that I've got to just flat out ask you. And Rod said the reason he broke up that line was because they were too light.
Oh my God.
He said that in the Islander series, he thought they were getting pushed around in the first couple games. So he bumps Fetch up to that line. He said he thought Jarvis would play well with Jordan Staal with the possession metrics. And if you have the puck all the time, that gives Jarvis, who's kind of got a hot hand, more scoring opportunities. So that was his reason. He said that he thought the Jag line was getting pushed around.
I don't think that's fair, considering Seth Jarvis is actually 6'3". I mean, because he plays like a big man. He does not play like he's 5'9".
I mean, I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm just telling you what Rod said.
Yeah, no, I understand. I haven't got the chance to watch that interview yet, because they were talking about some of the things that I've read from people watching that interview were talking about, like, it sounds like Brindamore, if he wins a cup, he's going to hang it up, and he's giving himself this 5-year window to get it done. Which would line up with us thinking that he never wants to leave Raleigh. His family's there, and he's just kind of ready to hang his hat there, and that be that. I kind of understand the rationale behind that, but I feel like that there were times in the series where he could have went back to that line at least for a few minutes, and it would have made a difference.
I mean, yeah, I don't disagree with you. I was hoping we'd see them reunited the entire Ranger series. If you got to break them up against the Islanders because, for whatever reason, they play, I think the Islanders play a little more heavy than the Rangers do, at least, as a whole unit. But I really wanted to see them reunited after. And I mean, but on the other side, Svetch played great. He just didn't score much.
Mm-hmm.
But he set up a lot of the goals were really kind of initiated by his efforts, on the ice. But
I'll go on Game 6.
There you go. That's one of them.
That's true.
So, I mean, I don't know. I think it comes down to goaltending and special teams. Freddie was definitely outdueled by Igor. Understand? I mean, I get it. But if we would have had Eastern Conference Final last year, Freddie, in that series, I mean,
Oh,
we
went
scored
in
on
6.
Igor. We were putting him past Igor.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
100%.
so
You sent me a cool thing the other day. In the 6 years that the Hurricanes have been eliminated, the goaltenders have been Tuukka Rask, Andrei Vasilevsky, Igor Shesterkin, Sergei Bobrovsky, and Igor Shesterkin.
yeah. I was going to talk about this when we got to the whole coaching extension thing, but since you brought it up, I might as well dive into it.
I've done my homework.
Dude, since you brought it up right now, we might as well hit this. What a string of unluck. I mean, I was thinking about this last night. I was watching Game 7 of Edmonton and Vancouver. And I was like, man, why can't Carolina get a matchup against Stuart Skinner in the second round of the playoffs? You know? Like, why can't we get that matchup? Or against the Canucks, who now, don't get me wrong, Shelov's played well in that series, but he's their third guy. Thatcher Demko goes out. Casey DeSmith goes out. Now you've got the guy that's been sitting in the AHL all year. No, Carolina gets 2 years of Tuukka, a year of Vasilevsky when he's playing at the peak of his prime in his career, and then you get Igor Shesterkin 2 years ago, who was at the peak. That's back-to-back Vezina winners, because didn't Bobrovsky win Vezina last year?
I believe so.
So we got eliminated by the Vezina winners 3 years in a row, right? You had Vasilevsky, then you had Shesterkin, then you had Bobrovsky. And I don't know who's going to win it this year. It's probably going to be Halibut, but or did they announce it already? They might have.
I don't know. They did the Masterson's Trophy and the Selke.
So, you know, and I was going to save this for the coaching discussion, but, you know, when we talk about these exits that Rod Brindamore, you know, 6 years in a row, second round exit, didn't win a conference final game, you know, all these losses, we're never going to get over the – look at what they've run into each and every year. I mean, that's – I don't care who you are. That's tough.
Whose it is.
I mean, am I right? Is that not –
Yeah.
Is that not – it's just an unlucky string of –
that's one of the plagues of being in the East, because the goaltending is way more stacked in the Eastern Conference than the West.
Right.
Way more.
So, I mean, I just, man, you know, I just, I don't know. It's just a bad, and I mean, really, we played all these teams close. I mean, I know we got swept last year, but man, it was still a close series.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with what Rod said about how, you know, well, we got swept, but we didn't really I agree with that. Like, I get what he's saying. Yeah, you got swept, but I get what you're trying to say. Like, what's behind that statement? You know what I mean? Just your thoughts, anybody, if you want to address this.
So when it comes to the whole Rod Brindamore extension, I think we all know all Hurricanes fans are probably not in agreement on this.
No, all you got to do is look at Twitter for 5 minutes and you'll see that.
Exactly. And I have a co-host.
I was waiting on you to bring it up. I didn't want to say it.
He's fine. He's fine.
Yeah, I know he is, but it's just, I understand why he had the rationale he had, but go ahead.
I mean, I lean toward the middle, especially after hearing what Rod and Waddell said yesterday. Like, ultimately, I'm happy Brind'Amore's coming back, but at the same time, you can't run. There needs to be changes, basically, I think, and one of them I think is there was a great article I think on Sportsnet of how more teams in the NHL are going to more of a zone coverage instead of man-to-man when it comes to D. And I think that's probably what Hurricanes need to do, is play more zone, because it works. I mean, man-on-man works in the regular season, but I just don't know if it works in the playoffs because of how skilled players are.
I think that's one of the reasons it stops working in the playoffs is because when you're playing against the same team over and over again, they get time to figure it out. One of Laviolette's big focal points in practice before that series started was preparing for Carolina's man-on-man D. And one of the biggest downsides of man-on-man D, especially if you're playing against a team like the Rangers who have Chris Kreider, or if you play against Dallas, a team that has Joe Pavelski, when you're on the penalty kill, one man is pretty much always uncovered, and he's always in front of the net. I don't want to leave Chris Kreider alone in front of the net. I don't want to leave Joe Pavelski alone in front of the net because they will make something out of nothing, and they will do it very quickly. You can think of the most lazily thrown on net puck, they will find a way to put it in. So moving away from the man-on-man thing, 5-on-5 and penalty kill both, I'm totally fine with, and I hope they hire a power play coach. Rod needs to take his hands off that and let somebody else cover it, just for sake of delegation, just to make things easier. And if they're not getting the job done, find somebody else. But that's what I think.
I don't think either of those things. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, just to go off what Brandon said, getting power play coach, it shows that you're trying to fix the power play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if either of those things are going to happen. I don't see Rod moving away from the man defense. I don't necessarily think you should abandon it. I think you need to do somewhat of a hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's the three defenders on man coverage, and then you got maybe the two defensemen and somewhat of a zone configuration or something. I don't know. Maybe you could figure out some kind of hybrid system. I'm not a hockey expert here. Like
Tampa did hybrid when they won the Stanley Cups. They did.
Yeah.
So the hybrid system of how they did it was man on man when the puck was high, basically
right
near the blue line, but they did zone whenever the puck was down low near the goalie.
Yeah, they did a zone box type of thing because I love this when I play too. Box formations in the defensive zone are one of my favorite things to be a part of, whether I'm playing defense or I'm playing center, because it's the easiest thing in the world, because you divide the ice up basically into quadrants, and then you have the fifth guy going and applying puck support, and it kind of helps on the exits, in my opinion. Carolina is close. Everyone knows that. I think that the adjustments that are needed at this point are small. They don't need anything drastic.
No, they don't.
So, like, going to like a box style hybrid approach in that regard is, I think that'll do the trick, especially in the playoffs.
And it may prevent so much of an adjustment period every time we get a new guy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not necessarily for the forwards, right? But look at Orlov this year, Burns last year. Like, it takes a minute.
Hamilton.
It takes a while to figure it out. So I don't know. I'm not going to say like, change it or else, we're not. I mean, obviously it's been successful. I don't think man on man defense is why we lost this year. I just think that, I think Freddie struggled. And my only criticism of Rod Brindamore in this postseason is he did not manage his goalie rotation.
No,
we should have stuck with that. That's what was working. We should have gone with it. But
that's actually kind of, in my opinion, one of his reoccurring mistakes. To cite the first time that I think he did that, when Carolina played against Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2019, when Mrazek came back. When Mrazek came back, he put him in pretty much immediately, and I don't think that he should have, because I thought McElhinney was playing incredibly well. He closed out that series with the Islanders right before, and that was one of those times where you ride the hot hand. I think McElhinney should. Now, we're not going to win that series regardless in 2019. No way. But I think that it goes to maybe 6 games if Curtis McElhinney wins 2 of them, if he's still playing.
Yeah. So before we get to talking about these exit interviews, I don't want to really go into too much detail on these, because I think a lot of them are just, let me just say something to the media to get a quote out there. I don't think it's like, no player is going to come and be like, oh, I hated my time here, I don't ever want to come. Like, come on, it's just whatever media talk. So we'll brush over them here. But what I'm going to ask you before we move on is, we've talked about the goaltending. We talked about Freddie. Adam Gold, right? Somebody I listen to that's been on all of our podcasts here. He made a comment post game that he thought Freddie Anderson had played his last game as a Hurricane and that he should not basically come back next year. He thought that, it just based upon that series and the fact that he kind of took the brunt of the blame for that series, that he had played his last game. You guys agree with that? Should they look to move him? Should they, thoughts? Anybody?
I'll go. So I think when it comes to Anderson, yeah, I think he's gone, and I think a part of the reason why I don't think it's the main part is I just think public perception on him when it comes to the fans aren't really happy. So I think that's part of it. And I think the other main part too is, which is what it should be, is his performance. Like, I mean, game 6, we can talk how that was a turning point in how the Rangers were coming back. But the Lafreniere goal, you need to stop that.
Absolutely.
There are so many other goals that he should have had if he was, I would say more aware, because if you look at his personality, he's a very stoic guy. He doesn't really show his emotion a lot. Kochekov is the complete opposite of that.
Yeah,
He wears
is.
his emotion on his sleeve and all that stuff. And I think if Anderson, because I really think it's like he's being too nonchalant there.
Oh, yeah.
He needs to be a little bit more assertive. And sometimes being a little bit more assertive, sometimes maybe. Well, yeah, I would say more assertive. I wouldn't say, I was thinking of maybe saying emotional, but I don't think that's the right word. Be assertive, grab that puck, and close it.
Yeah. Anything else? Anybody? No?
At a minimum, Freddie needs to go to a 1B role next season. I, however, tend to agree with what Adam's saying. I think the Hurricanes are going to look to upgrade in the goalie position. And we've talked about this a little bit before in our chat and everything. I think Linus Ullmark would be an excellent target for the Hurricanes in that regard. I know that they've also said right-handed second-line center. But
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Save that.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should prioritize the goaltending over that personally, because goaltending depth can be created real quick. There can be a logjam there real quick. It can also disappear really quick. That's what we're looking at right now. We've got our third string option with Spencer Martin locked down. That's a good thing. Kochekov, I do believe, is the goalie of the future. We cannot 100% say that for absolute certain beyond a shadow of a doubt just yet. So we need at least one more goalie who is not just an insurance policy, but someone we know can go start half the games next season and win a bunch of them.
So you think we need a number one guy?
We need to create competition for number one, because right now, Kochekov and Freddie, it's definitively Kochekov starting next season if those are the two. So right. I think I agree. If you get Linus Ullmark, you create competition between those two to see who the number one is going to be. And if that's a difficult decision for all the right reasons, then it was a good deal.
Now, I'll ask you guys this, and AB, you can chime in on this. Do you, if getting Ullmark out of Boston takes a Martin Necas going the other way, do you make that trade? Do you allow Necas to stay in the East?
So this is a really good question. Talking about Freddie, when he came over here, he came from Toronto. And Toronto obviously has so much media. You are under a microscope. If you make a terrible decision, you're hated. If you make a great decision, you're loved. Freddie has done a really good job here. I know we re-signed him last year for 2 years. And also we have Kochetkov under for, I guess, now 3 years. Going into next season. Freddie's getting older. He battled a very serious injury, which was blood clotting. And, he's done really well for the franchise, but I just feel like he hasn't stepped up in the moments that he needs to. You know, he did really well last year in the series against Florida. He played like a Vesna goaltender. But this series, when you know that you have the better team, you can't play the way that Freddie played this series, letting two really bad goals or more that could have easily shifted the series into the Canes' favor. I'll also talk about how, you know, Freddie may be on his way out. It's most likely that he will be. Natchez, we've seen stuff on Twitter about, you know, his dad saying he wants to be a center. And Natchez was one of the guys that didn't take a exit interview because he went and played for the Czech Republic for, I think, a World Cup or something like that.
It's
So
World Hockey Championship.
Yeah.
it seems like he's on his way out, but I do want to cover this real quick regarding exit interviews.
Hold on, you didn't answer my question.
Oh, what was your question?
If it takes Marty Natchez to get Linus Allmark out of Boston, do you make that trade, even if it means keeping him in the East? Because I think Natchez is it. Look, I think he's going to be great.
Yeah, I would say. I think so. I really think
that's
so.
Probably what it's going to take. It's probably going to take Natchez to get him out of there.
And Natchez is going to want to be on that top power play unit and want to be a center. And I will say he's done great at right wing when he was drafted. He was a center / right winger. Carolina has so much depth at the center position that there's no real need for him. And in situations where you need him to come up with clutch face-offs in the right-hand circle, I wouldn't trust Natchez at all. I would rather put Jarvis out there. So I say you trade him for his value. He's an RFA. Don't put him out for picks. You know, get it done. Get in a guy that you can dump for cap and then sign Linus Allmark because Nate just wants more than he's already been given. So, yeah. I mean, there's really no point.
I think that no matter who, I think Natchez is going to get traded this offseason. I think he's going somewhere. But I just don't see the organization because it's going to go to arbitration. If they offer the guy, he's not going to accept it. It's going to arbitration. I don't see the Canes wanting to go through that with him. Because if you he's going to get some money, and if you pay him, it's going to take away from other areas that I feel like are more important. I think it's time to bring in some of our young guys and let them develop. And if you got Natchez, I don't know. Either way, that's fine. Moving on here to address some of these exit interviews. There's some quotes that, they're all to me just BS, right? But sometimes you can take certain words and certain phrases from players and kind of really sometimes it gives you a little hint on how they feel. Like AB said, everybody went through an exit interview other than Martin Natchez, who was on the first thing out to play for Czechia on the World Championships. And might I add, he had 2 primary assists today against Canada. They would end up losing to Canada in overtime, but played well. He's playing, I believe, third line wing. If anybody's interested, he is playing wing. But a couple of these quotes that, kind of stood out to me from the exit interviews. Gensel spoke highly of the organization, and I think Gensel's our number 1 target outside of Seth Jarvis, right? But on the UFA side, I think Gensel is our number 1 target. He spoke highly of the organization, but there was a couple things that he said at the end that kind of made me raise an eyebrow, and that was referring to the team as they. Is that reading into stuff? Yeah, maybe. he was a trade deadline acquisition, so maybe the we never kind of made it to his vocabulary kind of thing. That could be, or, maybe he sees it as it's a they until I'm re-signed. I think with Gensel, and you guys can weigh in on this, but I think with Gensel, as long as Carolina is willing to pay him what him and his agent think that he is worth, I think we hold the advantage because, Carolina can give him an 8th year, whereas no other team can, right? So we've got that going for us. And, he's here, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he really likes it, like he says, and we pay him what he's worth, we can give him an 8th year and everybody's happy. But I think you got to make it happen. I think you got to pay him what he wants, right? If it keeps him here, give him $9 million, give him $9.5 million. I don't think he needs to make more than Aho. That's my opinion. But your thoughts on Gensel?
I will say this: the Canes cap space, since eliminated from the playoffs, is ranked 6th in the NHL, $28.1 million. Obviously,
yeah, we got a ton of guys to pay though, ton of positions to fill though.
Obviously, Utah is the first. Your UFAs are Gensel, Martinook, Nason, Turbo, Chatty, TDA, Pesci, Shea, and Ronta. The thing that really worries me the most, and I'll read this quote about Gensel when he was asked about re-signing. He said, "I've loved my experience here. It's a great place to play, and I don't think you realize behind the scenes how good it is. We'll see what happens." He's talked about how the decision is more so what's best for his family, and he wants long-term stability. Jake Getzel in Pittsburgh and then here had over 70 points. And he has proven at 29 years old that he can play. He can score. He can pass the puck. He's very good on the forecheck and defensively. I mean, this is a guy that you want to pay. It's just a matter of if Tom Dundon is going to pull out his checkbook, which he clearly has a lot of money because he just built Top Golf in Durham. It's just a matter if he wants to pay that price for a top 6 forward or is going to let him walk.
I don't think Tom's the problem. I think he'll pay his players. He'll pay the players. I think it's just got to make sense. He'll pay the players. He's proven that, right? He paid Aho. If that player will help his organization and he values that player, he will pay them. It's the around the edges that he's more tight about. I don't think that's accurate. You can grumble all you want. I don't believe that.
Well, see, the thing I think with when it comes to Gensel using the word they, this is my version of reading too much into it. I think that's him kind of poking the bear a little bit to say, hey, if you want me to be we and not they, you're going to pay me. I think that's him just kind of playing the, pay me what I'm worth type of game and everything like that. Because a lot of people, if you remember Aho's exit interview last year, when they asked him about what was going on with his extension, he's like, oh, I haven't even talked to my agent yet. And panic ensued all over the place. They were like, oh my God, he's going to leave. He's going to go to Montreal. I told you he wanted to go to Montreal. So it's one of those things that I'm personally not reading a whole heck of a lot into. My personal belief is that Gensel will be back.
I think so too.
I legitimately believe that Jake Gensel will be back. I think that's why Pesci and Shea are going to be casualties of the cap because the money that you don't spend on them, that's part of Gensel's contract. You can pay Chatfield, Martinook, and Nason with that money. And we have our defense is loaded. We're good. Tony will come back if he's needed. We'll be okay.
I think that the fact that they traded for him in the first place shows that they are willing to pay to sign him. I don't think that they make that trade. I don't think they give up Michael Bunting and, the prospects and the picks or whatever if they didn't have every intention of making a run to sign him. So I think that's your sign there. I just don't, everybody always says that this organization doesn't do rentals. Well, they'll do it if they don't view somebody as a rental. And, I'm willing to bet that there's already been conversations happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I am too, because it's like, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I think that they were, before they made the trade, they had an idea. I don't know if they talked to the agent or if they were even allowed, but I think they had an idea that they wanted, that they could.
Yeah, it's like this organization has a pattern of trading for players with term. So I think that it's one of those things where they traded for a guy that they were at least confident that they could sign. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it. And to be fair, the end result of the season might not have been much different without Jake Gensel, but you can see how much of an impact he can have, particularly on that top line going forward. Because let's imagine if we had a crystal ball to look in and say we traded for Jake Gensel before the season even started. That's 82 games. He had time to build even more chemistry with the team, that he figures out how our power play works, that he's with Sebastian Aho. I want to see what that's like after they've had a full-on adjustment period, not just a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spend too much time diving down into detail on every player. There's just a couple I really wanted to hit. But we will touch on Brady Shea and Brett Pesce, since, that's two big pieces. Brady Shea said basically he wants a fair offer. He's basically putting it out there that he does not want to take a team discount. I think the team would like to have him. I don't think they'll sign him for, he could go out and get $7.5, $8 million. He really could. And then Brett Pesce, one of the things about Pesce, though, that he said, he indicated that, let me see, where's the quote at?
He wanted to be here, right?
He said he's willing to take a discount.
Yeah, basically said that, hey, I'll take a discount to stay here. I think it's more about term for him. So if we can give him a little bit of term, he'd probably take a cut. So that, I started thinking maybe Pesce ends up, more of a possibility than Shea does at this point. I don't know.
Because he's less expensive, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Plus he
less
made
expensive. And go ahead.
He made it clear last season that he wanted to stay before the stuff didn't get done in the offseason as planned. And I do agree with your assessment of that. The landscape of things has changed. Mm-hmm. I think Pesce is more likely to stay now than Shea. Now, what I actually think is going to happen, here's what I think. Those two guys are going to sign together. Whether it's Carolina or not remains to be seen. But that the teams that are really looking to take the next step with their blue line, they're going to look to try and sign them both, because you're signing a pair. I'm not saying it's Solani and Korea all over again, but you're signing two guys that already know how to play with each other and who have really good chemistry and have the standard metrics and the underlying metrics both to back it up. If they're not in Carolina together, I think there's a strong possibility they sign somewhere else together.
It's one of those things where Pesce and Shea have been playing together for over 3 years now.
It's been more than that.
Yeah, it's been a lot more than that. Yeah,
4 and 5, I think.
5, yeah.
They've gotten comfortable with each other. I love the way that Rod balances out defensive defenseman, offensive defenseman. Shea and Pesce, same thing. Orlov, Chatfield, same thing. Again, the Canes have $28 million in cap. You're going to re-sign Gensel. That'll probably be 9, 10 million. So that's 18. You also have Stefan Nason, Brett Pesce, Brady Shea. If you were to do Brady Shea, Brett Pesce, let's just estimate that it's 12 million combined. So you're left with a little bit of wiggle room, but you also need a second line center. You want to keep Stefan Nason. You want to keep Jalen Chatfield. Marty Necas, in my opinion, and Freddie Anderson are not going to be here next year. So it's all about cap and how much they're asking for. Again, it's with the agents. Every player can say, I want to be here. I want to do this, and this. But again, it's all about money. That's just the reality of the business.
So out of the free agents that we have coming up, right? So Jalen Chatfield obviously said that he'd like to stay here. One more quote that kind of shocked me. Well, not really shocked me, but kind of made me raise an eyebrow. And then we're going to move on here. Is Steph Nason made the comment of basically free agency intrigued him, is what he said. So I think he's probably planning on going to get a payday unless there's somebody that doesn't want him. But who wouldn't want that guy?
I think he's the top priority in my opinion.
I agree. Net front guy. I think scores in the playoffs. I mean, I think if you can keep him, keep him. One of the things that could work out for Carolina is the fact that he fits in Rod's system really well. So maybe he doesn't play as well somewhere else, but I don't know. We'll see. But I think everybody else. I think Jordan Martinook's coming back. He wants to be here. I think. Back. I don't care. I don't. Yeah. I think Marty doesn't care if they pay him $1. He'll play here.
He loves playing for Rod. He will. I legitimately think he'll be back. I think that he'll shoot for a 3x2 type of contract because this is probably going to be the last one he has with more than 1 year worth of term.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it'll be 3-2, 3-3, something along those lines for him. But that guy is the Carolina Hurricanes when it comes to the style of play that Brenda Moore likes. Martin will be back.
I agree. Definitely.
Hold up real quick.
Who doesn't love looking at X before the game and a little Mr. Svechnikov?
Right, definitely.
And we've seen Jordan Martinook in the playoffs turn into Wayne Gretzky. I'll never forget that clip during the Devil series where this guy's turning into Wayne Gretzky.
All of a sudden, he's Wayne Gretzky
scores.
And he scores.
Yeah.
He's a great locker room guy.
He's a leader.
Honestly, a little bit of a hot take. I think you change the captains next year.
Oh, come on, AB. Absolutely not.
Well, I can't see that.
Just hear me out. 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 Hear me out.
All right, I guess we're going to take a break here and talk
disagrees with you.
How old is Jordan Stahl? 34, 35? Something like that.
Okay.
You saying he retires?
Nope. Just hear me out, Samuel.
We're hearing you out, AB. You said, let's go. Let's hear it.
Aho is going to be the face of the franchise. Why not do it now?
Because Jordan Stahl still exists on this roster.
Can I talk for a minute?
Go ahead.
Please. Sebastian Aho. Young. He is, honestly, I think he is more vocal than Jordan Stahl is. Jordan Stahl, in my opinion, is a little bit more of a quiet guy. I understand that Rod and Jordo, have a great relationship. The same thing with Aho and Rod. If it doesn't happen, Aho's going to be the captain of the future. But, maybe get a little bit of a change in there. It doesn't matter. I know with CAAs and whatever it is. But man, next year, I could really see Aho getting the C, Stahl getting the A, and Slavin getting the A instead of having Aho the A at home and Marty the A on the road.
Jordan Stahl only gives up the captaincy if he wants to give it up.
Absolutely.
I think that the guy who's wearing the letter doesn't necessarily have to be the best guy on the team. He just has to set an example, and I think that throughout the playoffs, Jordan Stahl did that. Aho will be the captain one day. We all know that. And I think that should we win a cup, Jordan Stahl will call it a career. Now, I just don't think that you can take the letter off the guy after everything he's done because he was here for the entirety of the drought. The whole dang thing he was here for. And he helped us get to the next step. So
and leadership presence is not about a voice.
Correct.
Leadership presence has nothing to do with words that are said, right? Leadership presence is the person, the example set, the actions. That is when the captain puts the team on his back in game 5, and single-handedly pulls that team across the finish line to force a game 6, that's a captain. A captain is the first one in the building, the last one to leave. And we don't know what happens behind closed doors. But just knowing the head coach and how the whole captaincy thing happened, with him and Paul Maurice and the whole thing with Bill Peters and
Kirk Muller,
the Justin Williams thing and all that. There's no way Rod's taking the C off Stahl's chest.
No, I see your point, but just my personal
Maybe
opinion.
if that happens, I will give you $1,000 instantly. I'll put it in your hand.
Do you think so?
That's how confident. Matter of fact, I'll make it $10,000.
What about Scott Darling coming back, number 1 goaltender?
No, I just don't see any way that Jordo gives up the C until he's ready to give it up, because it's his to lose, and he hasn't done anything that says, oh, that guy's not captain material. Everyone knows who's next, because they put Aho next to Justin Williams in the locker room. We all knew years ago who was going to be next, but his extension is just now kicking in. He'll have plenty of time. So
we've seen what happened with Blake Wheeler for the Jets.
Blake Wheeler is nothing compared to Sebastian Aho.
I know, but just for example.
No, we'll see. But moving on here. Yesterday, Rod Brindamore and Don Waddell held their final press conference of the season, where they announced Rod's new contract. Quickly, that's a 5-year extension. Well, reports say 5 years. The team hasn't come out and said 5 years. They've just said multi-year. There's probably some team options or something on the back end. We don't know. They seem real hesitant to announce the details because it's probably a little team friendly. And last time that happened, the other coaches throughout the league threw a fit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it'll. I'm assuming we'll find out details at some point. But with
Friedman reported the details.
He did. What he said?
I think it was 5. He said 5.
He said 5 years.
Only for the head coach. That's
what I'm saying. Only for the head coach.
But I'm saying, did he give a dollar amount?
No.
Well, apparently he definitely did get more money to where the other coaches felt a little bit more appreciated from the market value, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the other coaches were worried that if Brindamore doesn't get paid a certain amount, that it was going to devalue them. So I understand why they were concerned with it, because Brindamore is one of the best coaches in the league. So if he's not getting paid,
one of the best, I think the best.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking at it objectively, that from a market standpoint, this guy is definitively one of the best wherever you want to rank him. If he's not getting paid, what do you think is happening to people who are just now coming in? They're definitely not getting paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I just coaching details do not, they're not required to be released. So, maybe we get the real thing, maybe we don't. I don't know. But
can we expand on that for a minute?
If you want to take time on it, we can, or we can keep pushing through here. We're already at
let me talk to y'all and the audience for a minute. Rod Brindamore has turned this franchise around. Since 2009 until 2018, it felt like that we were going to be relocated. I mean, average attendance, I think, was 11,000 a year per game. Rod is the epitome of a Carolina Hurricane. Once he was hired, we have made the playoffs 6 years in a row. I'm not going to say, he should have won a Stanley Cup. He should have did this, should have did that. But the fact that the Hurricanes are relevant again speaks for itself. If we weren't relevant, we wouldn't have a Stadium Series game. We wouldn't have a rebuild pretty much of PNC Arena, or a guaranteed All-Star game, or another guaranteed Stadium Series. This guy, along with management, but most importantly, focusing on Rod, has changed this culture for the better. You can think all you want about, hey, he hasn't won this, and this. It doesn't matter. Rod Brindamore is here to stay. He is the only guy that I trust for head coach of this franchise. If you think differently, that is okay. It's the reality of the situation that Rod Brindamore is a Carolina Hurricane, and he needs to be the coach of this team until he hangs it up.
He deserves to see it through to the end.
There's a narrative out there that amongst some fans that he shouldn't have been given a new contract. I don't get that. I mean, a lot of people think Cup or bust. Maybe that was the case for this team this year, the core or whatever. But I don't think it has. I don't think this year's loss is on the coach. And I don't think any season's really been on the coach. I mean, yeah, he's part of a piece of the puzzle, but I think that Rod's done more with less. If you look at some of the rosters he's had over the years, I'd argue that, he's taken a roster further than I think that, on paper would basically show you, in my opinion, until this year. I think this year was the 1 year, that, you had the roster to do it and it didn't get done. Last year, making it to the Eastern Conference Finals with the injuries, and AB dropped out. Bye, AB.
It says AB in the stream with audio only.
Oh, well, anyway, I think that where was I going with this? I think
Brindamore did more with less.
Oh yeah, last year, right? With the injuries we had, we were missing Svechnikov, we were missing Pacioretty. Kasha didn't even play the whole year. You brought him in for a reason. Teravainen went out for a portion of the playoffs. The fact that you were able to still get to the Eastern Conference Final says a lot. I mean, yeah, you played a down Islanders team in the first round and really a Devils team that kind of, I thought, lucked around through the first round. That I didn't think the Devils were a very good playoff team last year, but you still were able to get there and then play Florida pretty darn good, in the Eastern Conference Final. That says something in itself. But the fact that you were able to win a series every year just speaks volumes, in my opinion, because that's hard to do. It's hard to win a Stanley Cup, but it's also hard to make the playoffs consistently and consistently win, in any round. It's hard. But we talked about earlier, I think that the roadblocks that are preventing him as a coach to take this team over the hump has to do with the other team. We have run into some hot goalies. That's the understatement of the year. We have, you run into Tampa, who's on in a dynasty. You run into the Rangers 2 years ago, who just were riding a hot goalie. Last year, the Panthers were just a team of destiny that just came up a little bit short in the final. I just don't think that that's coaching. I think sometimes you run into a better team. And, until this year, I thought that we made it further than we should have made it. But based on the roster, in my opinion. So if you don't bring Rod back, somebody else will gladly take him. And he will, take them to the promised land. I mean, I don't know.
Toronto.
Whoever.
And I think one of the reasons why a lot of people were, kind of expecting a coaching change, or expecting that a coaching change would be what would take place because of the lack of result, not getting the cup and everything. That's kind of an industry standard in hockey. It seems like in hockey, coaches are fired and recycled more than any other sport, regardless of whatever the outcome is. It's like it's easier to do that. Say again.
Hired to be fired.
Hired to be fired. That's a great way to put it. And I think that that's kind of become an industry standard. And the Hurricanes have defied several industry standards since Dundon and Waddell took over. And I think this is one of those times. And one thing I cited earlier on the stream that I had these two on, Joel Quenneville did not win a Stanley Cup in his first year with the Blackhawks. John Cooper did not win a Stanley Cup in his first year with Tampa. It takes time.
Yeah. Agree.
Same. Go ahead, and then I'll say something.
I mean, I get kind of both sides. Ultimately, I am happy Bryn Moore's coming back. I really am, but I do get both sides because on one end, I mean, you're a little bit more results oriented and be like, well, he didn't win the Stanley Cup. That's why. And then on the other end, you can say the achievements he's already made, like winning every round for winning a round for the past 6 years. Like that's an achievement of itself. So I would say Brendan Moore. Ultimately, I'm happy I'm having, or we're having him back, but I do think there needs to be some changes. Again, I'm kind of in the middle right there. I really am. But I wouldn't consider him as like a hockey god or whatever. And the reason why I would say that is, I mean, I know this is never going to happen. I know because he's retired now. But what if Scotty Bowman wanted to coach here?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be hard to pass up. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I will say this and go on a little bit of a 3-minute rant. I know every head coach wants to keep their assistant coach. Tim Gleason is in charge of the penalty kill. I understand the goalie coach that was re-signed and the video coach. I have no idea what Jeff Daniels does. I honestly think he just sits there and does nothing, because I heard that he has done the power play, or Rod's done the power play. I have no idea what he does.
Offense.
And, well, it clearly isn't working. So, I will say this. I think we had a coach early on where our power play was really good, and it was like a lot better than it was the past 2 years. I think the assistant coach went to Toronto to coach.
Mm-hmm.
And what we our friends and my friends have been talking about, hey, like, Rod needs to go away. He's been given this, and this. He hasn't won a Stanley Cup. And Toronto just signed Craig Berube. And he won a Stanley Cup in St. Louis. Again, round of applause for him. I had never heard of him before he won that Stanley Cup. Joel Quenneville, the same exact thing. Lindy Ruff. I understand that he was in Buffalo when the Canes beat him in 2006. Not to toot our own horn. It takes time to build something. A dynasty isn't built in 6 years. I'll go back to NC State. I'm an NC State fan. Basketball. We hadn't made a Final Four since 1983. I have been through hellfire and brimstone. And then finally we made a Final Four this year. So it doesn't happen overnight. I do think Rod is the guy that can lead us to the promised land.
He's the Andy Reid of hockey.
That's right. I mean, Andy Reid.
Look at Andy Reid in Philadelphia. He was knocking on the door and knocking on the door and knocking on the door. But what didn't he have? He didn't have a grade A quarterback. He had Donovan McNabb, who was just dragging him to the playoffs every year and couldn't get over the hump to the Super Bowl, right? As soon as that guy goes to Kansas City and he gets Patrick Mahomes, boom, Super Bowl, boom, Super Bowl.
Well,
boom,
he also had Vic, and Vic also came out after being jailed.
Yeah, that post prime Vic, that don't count.
Yeah, that was way post prime. Yeah,
but still, he was really good. But yeah, it just changes scenery. If you have the right players and you draft the right players, you're destined.
And I would argue,
Rome wasn't built in a day.
I would argue that, if you bring in a solid goaltender this year, we're going a lot further. If Freddie plays better, we're going a lot further. And maybe it's hard to compare hockey to football, but I bet Philadelphia was kind of upset that they gave up Reed there for years until they finally, got over the hump in 2019 or whatever that was. They won
Doug Peterson and Nick Foles. All right, I'm done. I'm done.
So I think that I think it's too early to give up on him. Give him, I know we say this is the best roster, but really give him his best roster. I bet you he can get you there.
The team we're going to have in 3 years is going to be significantly better than the one we had this season. The team we have in 3 years is going to be dynasty capable. And, it's like, if nothing else, we know Brendan Moore could potentially be here for up to 5 seasons. This is his to see through to the end, and I think that he has earned that. Yeah. Because without him, we wouldn't be where we are. But I'm really curious to see what he does with a roster that includes the likes of Nikishin, Morrow, Nadeau, Blake.
Right. And then an extended Gensel, maybe an extended Aho, an extended Jarvis 2-3 more years down the road. But in our next session, right, we're going to dive into these UFAs and kind of build our rosters out and things that we think should happen. But it's getting late. We're going to wrap this up and we're going to go through our predictions and then get out of here. So we'll start with the Eastern Conference Final between the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. So give me your winner and give me your game prediction, right? So in how many games?
Brandon, go ahead.
I'll go
Florida in 7.
Florida in 7. Okay. Sam?
Florida in 6.
Florida in 6. AB?
Florida in 5. As much as I respect the Rangers for beating us, I can't stand you.
Well, if I'm going with my heart, I'm saying Florida sweep the Rangers, but I can't go that way because I know that's not going to happen. Okay. I'm going to say I'm also going to say Florida in 6. I think that Florida's got the opportunity to go into MSG and wipe the floor with some Rangers. I think a lot of the Rangers' weaknesses that didn't show up against us are going to get exposed against Florida because I think Florida's a little bit in a better position than we are right now, to be honest.
Not wipe the floor with the Rangers. Wipe the floor with the Rags.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, Western Conference Final. The Edmonton Oilers versus the Dallas Stars. We'll go in the same order.
Dallas in 6.
Dallas in 7.
Dallas in 5. They're so good.
I'm also going to say Dallas in 5. I think that Stuart Skinner is in for a treat against the Stars, and I don't think he's going to hold up. And if he's not playing well, you can't have a sub 850 save percentage and outscore that. In my opinion.
Not against Jason Robertson, Joe Pavelski, and guys like no, he's fixing to get lit up.
Yeah, I
so
agree.
Damn good.
So I see the Stars in 5. I don't think Edmonton's as good as they project.
If there is a Dallas and Florida Stanley Cup final, the media is going to melt.
I think we're going to be there. I think we're going to be there. I think it's going to be Dallas. I mean, we all pick the same teams. We all think it's going to be a Dallas-Florida final. And if that's the case, who wins that series and in how many games?
Dallas in 7.
Dallas in 7.
I will say this, and I'll give my prediction. All the 4 teams that are left have not won a Stanley Cup in 25 or plus years. I think Dallas gets it done.
All right. Well, I'm going to be the lone defector here. I think Florida gets it done this year.
Oh.
I think Florida wins it in 6 at home. In 6 games. I think Florida's going to be your Stanley Cup champion this year.
Okay.
I wouldn't be disappointed. I don't hate both teams, so
I just don't want it to be the Rangers. At this point, I don't care if it's Dallas. I don't care if it's Florida. I don't care if it's Edmonton. Just not the Rangers.
That's right.
Anybody but the Rangers. So yeah. All right. Any last thoughts? Anybody? I think I'm done.
I'm done.
AB, take us home.
Good.
Thank you so much for listening to session 44. If you haven't already, please follow us on X, Instagram, or Facebook. Actually, all of them. at Caniac Sessions.
YouTube.
And can I get there, please?
Yeah, go for it.
You can watch us right now as you're seeing us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, click the notification bell to be alerted when we post a new video. Also, you can follow Brandon on X and YouTube at The Warning Take. He puts out really good stuff. You can follow Sam and his co-host on X at The Caniac Report. Sam, I'm not sure what other socials you have. Instagram at The Caniac Report. If you want to keep up with Griff and I individually, you can keep up with Griff on X at M_Griff10. And if you want to keep up with me, you can follow me on X at AB Caniac Session. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in session 45.
Bye.